Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and pay respects upon the lands upon which we meet, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge our special guest, Mayor Angela Long. And I'd like to let you know a little bit about the Chamber. We have business coaching, strategic planning. We do the latest in articles and have relevant topics and guides for members. And also I'd like to acknowledge Wendy Dawson. So Wendy is from Victory Offices. She is the Chief Brand Strategy Officer. And welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. And was that the throw over to me, Lisa?
Yes, it was.
Perfect. I already said to Victor I was pretty smart about, going with things, but I wasn't quite sure if that was it. But anyway, thank you so much for all of us for joining here. And we are a platinum sponsor of the Chamber, and we love working with the Greater Dandenong Chamber of Commerce because the diversity that the Mayor Angela Long spoke about earlier before we started, but also it's a great business community. And one of the great things about being a platinum sponsor is you get to host a party at your venue. And then there's lockdowns and COVID and that kind of thing. So we decided, well, you don't stop, the show has to go on. And I thought, well, let's move online. And when I was talking to Megan about it from the Chamber, she was enthusiastic, but you could hear a little bit of reluctance and all of that. And I said, well, we got to give people a reason to show up. And I thought about, what about optimism? And that's why I kind of thought, because, I talked to a lot of people about optimism and a lot of things. There's not a lot to be optimistic about at times, and if you let yourself go down a rabbit hole, there's lots of things that aren't terribly good. But let's actually talk about realistic optimism. Let's get together a group of people from our local community that have actually, despite adversity, have chosen to take a step towards a better tomorrow. And so that's why we've got the lovely Victor with us. And I've got a couple of things before I kind of finish my bit. Victor, I do remember the first time that we met. Not to say I was scarred, but it certainly left a lasting impression. I was at an event, and this man comes up to me, and he's like in my face, and in a not so much in a overbearing kind of a way, but he just this massive smile, and he's like, "What makes you optimistic?" And I must admit, I kind of thought a couple of things. Are you off your meds? Are you, but it makes you stop and think and actually engage. And I hope that all of you get that out of today more than anything else. Victor has put his ebook in the chat box. It's free this week on Kindle. Kindle's got a free trial. Get the book, download it, read it. It will be one of the best things you do this week. If we were meeting in person, we would give you a voucher. So the lovely team from the Greater Dandenong Chamber of Commerce will email each one of you an individual or personalized voucher for either an hour of meeting room time or 1 day of co-working, both complimentary for you to use at your discretion. So seriously, that's enough from me. Over to the team at Greater Dandenong to take it from here.
Well, I think you throw to me, Wendy. So
well, there you go.
So look, it's fantastic. Megan and Wendy said, look, would you be guest speaker at this event? And I said, well, I can be, and I can talk for several hours on optimism. And, obviously I speak at medical conferences and the like, and they are longer presentations. But I said, I'd rather speak for 10 minutes, and I'd rather have your members speak about their optimism. And can we get some of the most interesting people in the Greater Dandenong area to come and share what makes them optimistic? And we've got the mayor, we've got the deputy mayor, we've got Chris, we've got Sam, we've got John. And then most importantly, we're going to do a breakout into groups of 6 where you're going to share with each other. Now, whenever we come out of the breakouts, everyone complains it was too short, but 6 minutes is the right time. And then we're going to share some reflections. And then you have a choice at the end. I'll take a vote. We either do 30 seconds of laughter yoga, or we have Kay Clancy on here, who is one of the most fantastic singers. So we could sing something like You've Got a Friend, or we can do both. So I will give you that option at the end. So
I think Kate was shaking her head.
so look, firstly, let me speak for about 7 minutes. And my book is 365 pages. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of stuff there. Those of you who don't use Kindle, send me an email with your address and I will send you a paperback copy. So there's lots of material there. The first thing is, what is optimism? Now, at one end, it's Pollyanna. You know, it's Anna Sui, you know, the billionaire fashion designer in New York, who says at the age of 5, I watched the film Pollyanna and it has influenced my life for the rest of my life. You know, and she's been a great success on always looking at the bright side. We, on the other hand, at the Centre for Optimism, we think the science, both in terms of health and business, encourages realistic and infectious optimism. And I'll come back particularly on the health side as to why that's important. We've actually got a really great scientist here in Melbourne who could come and speak at some time at Monash, who's really hot on this. So firstly, the definition of optimism, and particularly for the ladies and for the Anglicans and the Catholics, you'll like this one. The oldest definition of optimism is from Mother Julian of Norwich. And why she's significant is she lived in a little cell in Norwich Cathedral in the 14th century. And what was significant about the 14th century? It was the worst plague in human history. It was the Black Plague. 30% of the English population died. Another 10% died in the wars over who was at fault and, you know, is this witchcraft or is it a message from God? And this woman wrote a book, the oldest surviving book in English, called The Revelations. And it's her conversation with Jesus through prayer. But the line that still rings to us in history is, all shall be well, all shall be well, all manner of things shall be well. And the modern definition of optimism that comes to us from Harvard, Oxford, the American military, the American Heart Association, is almost resonant of that. It's optimism is a belief that good things will happen and that things will work out in the end. And do we have any Beatles fans in the group? Yeah. John Lennon famously added, and if it hasn't worked out, it's not the end. So that's optimism. It's not there's a silver lining in every dark cloud. We've got a group, Centre for Optimism, working on grief and optimism. You know, we lose family, we lose friends through death. You know, you're all in business. You know, there are businesses that go bust. There are jobs that are lost. All of those things happen in life. But the optimist perseveres. And that's the essence of what we teach. And that's the essence of what we foster. Now, health. There's some remarkable science, and I'm looking at the age of the people here. There's a reason why you didn't learn this at university or in your MBA. Harvard, the American military, and Oxford and Boston University in 2018 did a huge study on healthy longevity, living to 85 with good mental and physical health. And when they started the study, they expected it to be, and you'll be nodding, wealth, income, genetics, geography, but you've guessed it, they were confounded. The key trait behind healthy longevity is optimism. Now, there was a very interesting Italian study about the same time looking at 100-year-old Italians who are still active in community life. And again, you guessed it, the study said there are two traits, and it epitomizes the people in this room, purpose and optimism. Now, the American military and Harvard were confused by the result. They couldn't do a mechanism. So the American Heart Association put together a scientific panel, and they reported in January of this year, and I got to interview the chief scientist. And they actually went further than the Harvard American military study and say that for every mortality, cancer, heart disease, dementia, optimism is either protective or slows down the onset and is most predictive of recovery. And their conclusion is that it's the anxiety, the depression, the pessimism that causes your blood pressure to rise overnight and damages your body organs, leading to earlier death. And the Monash study I referred to, which was published just this month, goes a slightly, verifies the American Heart Association statistics, but actually says that being unrealistically optimistic can also be damaging, just as being pessimistic can be. So even though, you know, we've got a big faction at the Centre for Optimism that says, you know, Pollyannaism is good, realistic optimism is what the community needs in its leaders. Sleep, I won't go at length because otherwise I will go beyond my 10 minutes. Vienna Medical School did a huge study last year. You won't be surprised, the optimist sleeps better. And the mechanism is that you put the ordinary anxieties of life into context. And most of you who are married or have a male partner would suspect that they're optimists anyway, because the moment you want to start talking to them in bed, they've fallen asleep. So that happens. But the Vienna Medical School also said that more sleep helps you to be more optimistic, and that's, you know, the health stuff. And a really interesting thing, this is a habit you can all try tomorrow, is they recommend a practice called My Best Self, which the American military now uses as well. So tomorrow, give yourself, or even tonight, give yourself 20 minutes, undisturbed. Spend 5 minutes imagining yourself 5 years ahead. Imagining everything goes right with family, friends, and work, and then spend 10 minutes writing about it. Best handwriting. And then just go for a walk or have a cup of tea or a glass of wine and just think about it. And if you do that every 3 months, every 6 months, Vienna Medical School and a number of other research centres say it will really lift you and your infectious optimism. Now, the last one on the science is romance. This study comes from Michigan University. It's a huge study, tens of thousands of people. And if you have an optimistic husband, wife, spouse, partner, you get many of the protective effects of being optimistic yourself. So if you have an optimistic partner, mazel tov, you've hit the jackpot. You don't have to listen to it anymore, switch off, go home, have a drink. If, on the other hand, you've got a pessimistic partner, there'll be two conclusions at the end of my presentation. And I hope you take the one that flips them to being more optimistic. And then those of you who are single, this is the question you should ask on your first date. What makes you optimistic? And if they can't answer that question, make the first date the last date. They're no good for you if they're not optimistic. Now, to the world of work, because we're here at Chamber of Commerce, leadership in the 2020s needs to be realistic and it needs to be optimistic. Dominic Barton, who was the head of McKinsey, you know, $40,000 a day for him to advise anyone, talked to me about this, and he's now the Canadian ambassador to China. So he was negotiating for the release of the Canadian prisoners. He said to me, every great leader he has ever met is infectiously optimistic, but it's not the big man or woman speaking from the front of the stage, right? Doesn't matter if the Prime Minister says he's optimistic. It doesn't matter if the CEO says he's optimistic or she's optimistic. The key is to unlock the optimism in the team, right? From the youngest to the oldest, from the least experienced to the most experienced. And the bit of homework I commend to you all when you go back to your business, whether it's a sales team or the next board meeting or the next exec meeting, or talking to the girl or boy who does reception or checkout, this question: what makes you optimistic? And not what makes you optimistic about work. You want to know what makes them optimistic. And I can share some anecdotes later, but when I did this for the Department of Jobs, the best answer was my garden, my pets, and you could guess she did not want to come back to the office. Strategy, I think it makes sense to you all. Strategy needs to be an optimistic process, but the trick is Australian companies have been lost in negative scenario planning, right? You get Deloitte or PwC to do your scenario planning. Climate change is an existential threat, right? Young people are more selfish, and as John from Southeast Water will be able to tell us, companies in the water sector, for instance, see climate change as an opportunity, not a threat. It's remarkable. So look, that's enough from me on that front. I've given you 2 hints already. So one is to do my best self. Second one is to ask this question at your next board meeting, but put it on notice. The third one I want to give you is remember to smile. Okay, everyone check in now on the screen. I want you on gallery view, everyone on smile at everyone. I had an audience with the Dalai Lama 4 weeks ago. He said, my secret to success is I smile at everyone, I say hello to everyone. The second one is to laugh and laugh often. And that's what we will do at the end. We will do 30 seconds of laughter yoga. Then the third one I'd commend to you is to change your greeting, right? And I've done this in prison with some of the worst prisoners. In Australia, if you say, hello, how are you? What is the usual response? 65% of people. Yeah, Wendy, you did that. Not bad or not too bad. And do we ever say, oh my God, what's wrong? It's actually a wasted question and a wasted answer. And if you're in sales or leadership, why do you keep doing it? So with the prisoners, I said to them, I want you with every guard from now on to look them in the eye and say, what's been the best thing in your day, Jack? Of course, you're caught. Someone says to you, what's been the best thing in your day? You're not used to answering it. But 80% of the time you do that, you will get a story of hope and optimism. And I recently did an interview on New Zealand radio. The guy said, I've been plagiarizing this man, Victor Perton, for a year. That was the thing he took away. So I'd like each of you, there's one thing you remember from this presentation. For the rest of today and tomorrow, you are going to get rid of the question, how are you? And you are going to replace it with something like, what's been the best thing in your day? Maybe on Friday, what's been the best thing in your week? And you get a refund on this speech if it doesn't work, all right? But I assure you it will work. And then the week after that, I'd like you to try the second experiment. And that is when someone says to you, how are you? Pause theatrically. Say, look, thanks for asking. God, I had a great meeting of the Dandenong Chamber this week. Or, God, my daughter made me breakfast in bed this morning. Just something, 3 or 4 words that will get them to ask the next question. And the Chinese are listening to me. My phone just said, your time is up. So look, that's enough from me. I'm happy. I can talk at length. If you want me to, if you run sort of not-for-profits or the like, happy to come and do it for you. We did Jewish Care, for instance, asked us to do a session for them just before New Year because no one could go to synagogue or have family gatherings. Well, they just asked us back again. So we're going to be doing it for 500 people in Jewish Care. So if you run a not-for-profit, Mayor, if you want to do it, you want an hour of optimism for the city, let's do it. Now, the most important thing, that's enough from me. Now we've got the real stars. So I'd like to ask you, Angela, as the mayor of the city, what makes you optimistic?
What makes me optimistic is that I could look towards the future after COVID. I'm very lucky I've been double vaxxed and I'm encouraging everyone in our community to go and get vaccinated. We've got a pop-up vaccination centre in Palm Plaza. So, and also that our diversity is one of our strengths as well. And let's celebrate that. A lot of people think, oh, you got a lot of people that don't speak English, don't have jobs or whatever. We have a lot of people that are homeless at the moment. Through COVID, they've lost their jobs. So usually they lose their house. They can't afford rent. So we're working with social security companies like Ways and things like that that are helping these people. And we were at the COVID vaccination centre this morning. And one of the ladies there said to me, how can you get rid of these homeless people? And I thought to myself, you have never been in a position yourself that you are homeless. These people sometimes have mental and alcohol issues and cannot get a bed anywhere. Let's try and help them. My optimism is, let's try and help everyone get through this pandemic. Let's get our businesses up and running again and see we can get more people employed locally.
That's absolutely brilliant. You've got such a wonderful multicultural community. I was telling just before we started that we did a private event for the Afghan community on Saturday night, and such tales of tragedy and the like, but they were so optimistic. So you must find that as you get around as mayor, all of these ethnic groups, the refugees, the migrants, they tend to be more optimistic than native-born Australians, don't they?
So true. And look, we haven't been able to get out and mingle because of lockdown, but I live next door to an Afghan family, and sadly, one of their relatives in Afghanistan was killed in that bombing at the airport. He was 24 years old. So they have said to me they are so lucky to be in Australia and have, thankful from the Australian government that they are here and they have got work. They're not on any unemployment or anything. They all work. So, and they're very optimistic themselves, and I'm very happy. They're very lovely people.
You are such a genuine Australian leader. You just exemplify those characteristics that really mark it. You can see that in the chat people are talking about you. And those of you who don't know how to use the reaction button at the bottom of Zoom, can you see that little reaction button? I love using the heart, but you can do smileys and all sorts of things. So if you can test out the reaction button, I think that's a mayor with an optimist heart. So fantastic. We'll come back to you. Chris, I love your business, real food merchant. And you've had it tough with, all of the restrictions and the like. So can you tell us, Chris, what makes you optimistic?
Look, I believe COVID's been an opportunity to take new initiatives and take this time to sit back and improve your business. We've been fortunate; we've been able to just tick along. We're down about 25% in the wholesale business of what we were pre-COVID, so it's a fairly big cut. But we've been lucky to be able to keep all our team together. We employ around 200 people across the business. So we're a bit fortunate because we've got retail outlets as well. So pretty diverse like that. But yeah, I just think that I've got to give credit to all the team that I've got at Dandenong there, which are the ones that are affected by the restrictions. Any initiatives that we've introduced, they've taken them on board. They're keen to, they're looking forward to obviously it all opening up and getting back to normal. So it's really good to see that. I just think the best part about it, we know we're coming out of it. Hopefully we don't get any more lockdowns after this one, but we know we're coming out of it. A lot of businesses that we deal with, as far as cafes, restaurants, we know that they're going to rebound and open. We can tell by they're still trading, although it's very minimal because it's just takeaway, but they're still trading. So it's good to see.
So two questions, because we've got a couple of questions there about what you actually do. So, what is a real food business, and how have you kept that team of yours optimistic?
Look, we're a retail fruit and vegetable. We've got a store in Sorrento, Mentone and Taronga, 3 retail outlets. We've got our wholesale outlet, which provides fruit and vegetable. So it's predominantly fruit and vegetable. The retail are mixed. So there's a bit of grocery and fresh food amongst the mix there. Our wholesale business is predominantly fruit and vegetables. So, but we supply around 500 restaurants, cafes, hotels, nursing homes, similar. So we've got around about 30 to 40 vehicles operating, all the time. So, and we've got a team of around, I think it's about 55, 60 at Dandenong, somewhere there. But as again, they've all been kept on, and we purchased the building next door around about 2 years ago, and we're going to occupy that as well as the one we're in at the moment in about a month's time. So we're looking to actually expand. I think there's an opportunity out there to expand the business.
I think Wendy says you are a ritual of hers. So you're obviously well loved in that community. Do you mind if I turn to Sam? Sam Hoth. Sam, can you just wave? Because I just can't. Oh, there you are. You're on my bottom. You run this fantastic business, Teen Kids.
Yes, I do.
Such important work. Can you share with us what makes you optimistic and what makes the kids you work with optimistic?
Yeah, so just very quickly, Teen Kids is an outside school hours care provider and holiday program provider. So we look after about 2.2 million children, or we have about 2.2 million attendances each and every year at services all across Australia. What makes me optimistic, I suppose, is we live in an age, and I'm sure I had to duck off for just a few minutes. I have bees at home and they've just all decided to swarm as I've been sitting here watching you. They've just swarmed. So I've just been like, oh my God, I've got to go see what's going on. Anyway, so if I have to duck off again in a moment, I do apologize. What makes me optimistic though is we live in a time where we essentially, I think if you're born in this country, you very much have hit the human lottery. We've got an incredible healthcare system. We've got an incredible education system. We've got incredible opportunities, no matter what your socioeconomic background is, although there are obviously differences within that and people have different opinions. But if you want to make a go of anything in life, at the moment, with the way that technology is and your access to resources, everything is at our fingertips. And for me, I'm naturally a very optimistic person. So when Megan kind of invited me to come along, I thought, well, and I was actually talking to my partner about how I do have a positive disposition and a very optimistic attitude about everything I do. And I think it's a fundamental reason why my business has been quite successful is because I do always see the opportunity in things. I always see the brighter side of things. And I think what happens is that becomes infectious in a good way, and it provides hope and it provides positivity. And I think culture in any organization is the most important thing. And if you can share that optimism, then that promotes healthy culture, positive culture. And I think that's a key ingredient for success, no matter what you're looking to do. In terms of your question about children, what makes them positive, I think that they kind of get that they're pretty lucky. Our education system is such that it does show how lucky they are and how fortunate they are to have the life that lots and lots of them have. Some of them got it obviously harder than others, but I think that's something that does create a fair bit of optimism. On the flip side, there is also a lot of pessimism out there, and I think our children are exposed to a lot more negativity than perhaps we may have been exposed to growing up, simply because media is very, very quick to show all the ugly stuff that's going on. So I think that we do need to be protectors to a certain degree about that, or making sure that we are weighing up the information that they are exposed to, making sure that there is lots of optimism around them when there can be quite a lot of pessimism around them.
Yeah, and you nail it. I mean, that is like a masterclass on optimism, Sam. One of the things we say to people is switch off the news. Mm-hmm. Right? A businessman or woman only needs 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes at night, and the worst thing you can do is wake up to an alarm clock, which is the news. Yeah. 95% of the news is bad. So I think, as you say, Sam, it's not just protecting your kids from the news. You've got to protect yourself. And Sam, I mean, I love to see your calmness and your smile in the middle of bees swarming. As I shared with the others, we had an audience with the Dalai Lama 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
And he actually shared that his view on teenagers now is the most important responsibility of parents and grandparents is to maintain the hope and optimism of those children through the coronavirus and beyond.
Yes.
So what are you seeing, Sam, around that in the work you do?
To be quite honest, it's very challenging for children at the moment. They are feeling, especially the younger children who perhaps were really looking forward to their first days of school last year, and they didn't really get much of a chance to go to school last year. And obviously it's taking a long time this year to get any real continuity in attendance and building those friendships and building those social and emotional skills that are really important in those early years. Similarly with, grade 5s and 6s, they're feeling like they're, I think, having a lot of their opportunity taken away from them as well. So speaking to a lot of the child psychologists and counsellors within schools, there's been a definite spike in anxieties and other sorts of issues that have been a direct result of not being able to properly interact in a human type way for them. So I think that there is some real opportunity going back to school to really find the best way forward to support those children that have perhaps found it a little bit trickier navigating through this time, and perhaps who have not had the network at home, the parenting at home that others may have been able to have to support them through this too. Many different parents have got different sorts of jobs and responsibilities and can therefore do the homeschooling a lot better than others. So there's a lot of different there's a lot of variety, I suppose, in the experiences children have had throughout this.
Well, I think anyone who's got their kids with you is very fortunate, Sam, with that sort of leadership. Naeem, can I come to you after I've done the panelists? Is that all right, if you could hang on, if that's okay? So look, I'd like to turn to John Theobald, and John comes from Southeast Water. So all of you get your water from him, whether you're at home or in business. And we did a brilliant event on Friday, didn't we, John, with the young leaders of the water industry. And there was one bloke on who said, I worked on a metering project with Southeast Water, and they were brave in their innovation. He just called you out for being brave in innovation. And of course, all of you in innovation know that pessimists can't innovate, right? Because they're ground down in what went wrong. So you've got this wonderful optimistic culture. Your chairman said to me, she is a Pollyanna, that she only spends her time on things that are going to change the world for the better. So John, tell us what makes you optimistic.
Well, thank you, Victor. I appreciate the introduction. I do work for a water authority, and we have to be optimistic because we rely heavily on rainfall to bring us our water, but we're diversifying in that. In terms of your question, what makes me optimistic? There's a few things I'd probably like to briefly touch on. Is for me, optimism's a view or a lens you have on what you see in the world. And it's important with that you don't get shrouded by other things that can take away from it. And I think Sam touched on that with the news, and so did you, Victor. So I quite often look at ways that will positively influence what I do. And through work with Southeast Water, part of my role, we actually supply grants out into the community. So I get to see so many community organisations volunteering their time, energy and efforts to support other people. And we have the privilege of being able to go through those and award money and help them achieve what they need to do. And so by having a lens that actually sees that I get to see the positive things in the world really, really helps with being optimistic. And, for Dandenong, for example, we've been working with Wellsprings for Women, which are helping refugees and migrants come out and learn about sustainability and environment and where water comes from. We've provided money to the Malinga Community Gardens, and they're about helping people with mobility issues do gardening and things like that. So seeing and experiencing what benefits there are through other people and being reliant on that really helps with optimism. And probably a really simple analogy was on Monday, we had a hailstorm that came through where I live on the Mornington Peninsula. And my daughter dragged me out. Come on, Dad, we've got to go out into this hailstorm. And the joy in her face from getting hit by these little pebbles, picking up ice and throwing it, just gives me optimism in the future. There's a generation coming through And if my daughter wasn't with me during that hailstorm, I may have had a slightly lens on saying, geez, I hope nothing gets damaged. Gee, it's impacting hard. But her joy in collecting ice and throwing, and I've still got some in the freezer that she's collected, and the joy of it all. So for me, optimism is really about making sure the lens you have is the right one with a filter that gives you experiences to enjoy things, such as being around good community organisations, being around my daughter. I'm a Collingwood supporter, so I'm very nervous about what I read in newspapers, and they love tearing it apart to create sensationalism. Similar to what you touched on, I actually don't watch the news with my daughter. I only look at things that are quite positive, and that helps reinforce it. So, but I also realise I'm in a very privileged position. I have a good job. I have a healthy lifestyle. I have a strong family network. The community I live in, COVID really impacted a lot of people around here, but I've met more of my neighbours. They've offered me vegetables from their gardens. We've created a newsletter. Like, even during a pandemic, there are things that are really positive there. And if you look and focus on those things, your life becomes so much easier and more enjoyable.
And gratitude is the key, isn't it? Saying thank you to whatever God you believe in, and saying thank you to the people who help you. Now, I've had the opportunity to interview both your chairman and your CEO, but so tell us briefly, because I've allowed time to run a little bit, what is the key to South East Water's optimism?
Oh, optimism, we have a workforce of about 600, 700 people. And for me, I think the biggest thing for our optimism has been empathy with our employees and staff, really understanding and caring for them. We offer school COVID leave. So if you need to do homeschooling, our employees get to have that opportunity to not be stressed with work and take that time off to work with their students. We try not to schedule meetings at the start of the day. So we know that a lot of parents are looking after their kids. So you don't try and bombard people at 9 o'clock in the day or at the end of the day. We're enabling our employees to actually live their lives during the pandemic. And that for me is just a lot of empathy and understanding. And that's enabled us then to be very optimistic that the future is right. We're doing a lot around, as I said, grants for our customers. We provide support for those who can't pay their bills. And being in that environment where you're actually providing a positive experience is contagious. I wouldn't like to work for an organisation that were debt collecting or doing activities that were actually detrimental. We're very fortunate that we would never shut off anyone's water. So if they came to us to say we can't afford to pay it, we'd work out a way to enable them to continue to have an essential service provided to them. We would not shut them down. We would provide support. And for me, that becomes contagious and optimism in the water industry.
I think love hearts from everyone on that one. And they recently put in a new digital meter in my front yard, and I've never met more polite workmen than I met from your guys. I think they were fascinated. There was someone who was fascinated in their meter as well. Now, David, you run one of the most crucial public services in our entire community. David, do you want to come off, unmute? Yeah. David, what makes you optimistic?
Thank you, Victor. I guess I thought about this to start with. I would lead in by saying I've been very fortunate to grow up in a very loving family environment and worked in a number of caring employment entities. I guess this background has really instilled in me a sense of optimism, and with that, it's a belief and a hope, I suppose, for desirable and favourable outcomes, but also a positive state of mind that always hopes or expects something good will happen. Now, I guess having come from a commercial environment, still involved in a little bit, but Wallara, as people probably know, is a disability organisation located in Dandenong and down towards the southeastern area there. My involvement with that has really changed my whole, I suppose, theories and expectations of optimism, because at Wallara we provide what we would call an inclusive quality service, which is most important. And to visit that place, experience the joy, the excitement, I suppose, the security, and really the sense of purpose of people who with disabilities and their sheer engagement in things. It just puts a whole new meaning on optimism. And we at Wallara, we seek to really engender optimism throughout the whole thing, from the top to the bottom, and that's including our clients. It's an absolute delight to go there and see clients, as we call them, which is not a very good name anyway, but that's what we classify them as, waiting to come in the gate in the morning to join in and get involved in doing activities at the place. It's just an absolute delight.
And the word you used, that John used as well, and that Sam used, was that word joy.
That's right.
You know, some laughter and some happiness in the day, and, you know, looking at life through the eyes of children. So what's been the key then to maintaining that optimism in the teams that you know, you're responsible for and that you run?
Well, I think that the main thing is to try and, through the lockdowns, etc., we've had all sorts of pressures put on us as to what we can and cannot do. But I think the fact that I suppose one of the main things, if you look at change in leadership, we've had to change our direction. We couldn't provide what we classify as a day service, which is where people come in, bust into our facilities in Dandenong, and we provide services for them during the day. Now, we were restricted to do that because of lockdown. So the team got together and worked out how we're going to satisfy those people. And we set up an online service, which was an absolute delight, because it meant those people were still involved and still engaged. And it's all about engagement for them. It's their social outing that they were missing. So they were still able to come on screen and share with other people. So that's been the biggest thing we've done.
I've been locked down, David, and, you know, I was traveling a lot before this, and I'm actually doing an event for the Congo in 2 weeks. Now, for me to go to the Congo, I mean, I need to spend 10,000 on security and thousands. So to be able to do an event in the Congo, I mean, it is the miracle of Zoom, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, we're going to move to the breakouts, but Naeem has to go. So we're going to quickly ask Naeem to share what makes him optimistic.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Victor, to give me the chance. I did have an hour exactly, because I'm going to the next meeting. I am a former councillor of Greater Dandenong. I served as a mayor, and now I currently look after the operation of Arab Bank Australia in Victoria. And during this unprecedented pandemic on us, it's what actually make us optimistic is really, we live in a lucky country. We live in the best country. We live in a multicultural community where we have the government looking after its citizen like no other country provided the support that we had here in Australia. We have relatives all over the world almost. And when they hear about how long we've been locked down in Melbourne, they couldn't believe it. And sometimes we can't believe it ourselves. But let's look at what we're doing in terms of being optimistic about the future and what we're doing. In our organizations, we've assured everyone the things is the way how it's going will keep us going for another 4 years if we don't lose any customers, if we don't bring more customers. So be happy, we provide the support we need to provide to them, and we give them the assurance that we are here to help them and work together. Wake up in the morning, sing a nice love song or something. Look forward for the day, what you want to do and what you want to achieve of that day. Never ever be worried about what's going to happen next if I'm going to these things, or if I'm going to do this, what's going to happen. Look about what you're going to do is what you're going to achieve out of it in terms of good. And if it's anything going to be wrong, learn from it and be optimistic about future of not being having to do or go through the same thing. I really enjoyed this. I just like to let you guys know I am now the chairman of the Australian Arab Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Victoria. On the 25th of November, we're coming to Dandenong. Now they're rolling this up to do presentations about a global diversity in business. our chamber that deal with the Middle East and North Africa, 22 countries. And yeah, we are optimistic about the future. And those businesses being affected by COVID, and they've had their business slowed down because of what's happening with COVID. I reckon that it will pick up, and in the future, we have a bright future, and be optimistic about it.
No, that's brilliant. Again, a masterclass. And Megan and Lisa, what a great partnership, you know, with the Arabic Chamber. You know, you've got people producing electric buses and all sorts of things. What can we export to the Middle East? What can we bring back? Kay Ledson's on board as well. And we have a mutual best friend who's the president of the Australia San Francisco Chamber of Commerce. So Kay, you've got to introduce those guys into the circle as well. So, and Naeem, would you believe, small world, a lady in Paris today sent me an email offering to translate my book into Arabic.
Why not?
So what a small world. Now, we've reached the 1:21 mark. We are going to do a 5-minute breakout, Megan. So not 6 minutes. So everyone, you're going to break up into groups of 6. Introduce yourselves quite quickly, what you do, etc. And then I want you to share with each other what makes you optimistic. So Megan's going to, Mrs. Magic is going to break us into groups of 6. In fact, Mayor, what do you think? Next council meeting, why don't you do what makes you optimistic as the first item on the agenda?
Let's see what we can do, because usually agendas are set months in advance.
Oh, well, the next one after that.
I can actually probably put something at the end of not the start. So how about we try and do something like that?
Absolutely perfect. You are the leader the city needs. So we just love it. Look, we've got to the 1:28 mark and we have promised you all that we're going to finish on time. So look, I'll take a vote. Who would like 30 seconds of laughter yoga?
Laugh.
All right, we've got lots of hands up. Who would like to end up with You've Got a Friend? So what I suggest we do, we're going to do 30 seconds of laughter yoga. Then I am going to throw back to Madam President to do the formal thank yous. And then, Kay, if I can implore you, after we've done the formal close, if you can lead us in a song, You've Got a Friend. It's a deal. So everyone, now you've got to, cameras on, unmute. And does anyone here have ever done laughter yoga before?
I've never done it, never.
Okay, Wendy's done it too. So Wendy, you're going to do, so we're going to breathe in deeply. Oh, hang on, we'll do a group photo while we're laughing. You can do that, Wendy. So breathe in really deeply because you're going to be laughing.
I can't
for 30
do the
seconds.
group photo. Somebody's going to be more smarter than me. Megan.
Yeah, stop it. We're not doing photos now. We're doing laughter. So ready? 1. So breathe in. And let's laugh.
Keep it going, everybody.
I've got to stop. You can see I've got red in the face and my ribs hurt. Now, you reckon you do that 30 seconds a day? You know, life is better. Whether you're watching a comedy, my daughter got me watching Derry Girls the other day. And those of you who've been to a Catholic school, I just laughed every 15 seconds. My daughter couldn't even work out what I was laughing about. But make sure there's lots and lots of laughter. I've really enjoyed joining you. It's been such an honor. And the leaders who've led us, Angela, Chris, Sam, John, David, and our friend from the Arabic Bank. I mean, what inspiration. Lisa, Wendy, absolutely fantastic. And Lisa, if I can throw back to you to do the formal thanks before we leave with a song.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Victor. Thank you, everyone. In Victor's words, think of what's the best part of your day. We'd love to take an image for socials if we haven't done it yet. Megan?
Hang on, I'm going to do it now.
Okay.
Everyone, big smiles. And you can do hearts as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never been in an immersive view before.
There we go. Doesn't that look cute?
Beautiful. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, and great for you to attend.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chamber.
All right, everyone ready to sing again? Unmute. And Kay, have you got the words, or do I put the words in the chat?
Would you put the words up for me, Victor? You all know this, so we'll all sing along. When you're down in trouble and you need a helping hand, and nothing is going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, all you have to do is call Dandenong and I'll be there. Yes, I will. You got a friend. Thank you very much.